I never know when these things are actually live or not. But okay, cool. Apparently we're live now, so that's good. I never know when these things okay, so and it started live as soon as I said you never know when these things are gonna go live. Anyway, guys, I'm here with Sarah Brailey. She's an historian from Athens, New York, but I mean where in New York are you from?
I live in Lake Katrine, but I am the town and village historian for Athens, New York.
Okay, awesome. And she has been like on her own mission of documenting. She's documented over 73 stone chambers in the Northeast so far, and apparently there's like over 600 or something. There's a ton more, right? Um, and yeah, so we're gonna get into it today. She's about to put on a conference on Saturday that's coming up. So you want to give some people the information about this conference?
Sure. I don't know if I'll be able to bring this up because I don't have the link on me right now, but they can go to my Facebook page or they can go to Eventbrite, or you could just literally type in Google's Set in Stone Megalithic Conference and it'll come up right away. Eventbrite, it'll probably be the first link that is there, and I just urge people to register there. The tickets are free. You can start rolling in and parking at 10 o'clock, and we'll start our presentations at 11, and it goes all the way to 7 o'clock at night. So, and you can
Cool.
come and go as you want, kid friendly.
And it's who's all speaking?
I got a great list right now. So, we're going to start out with a man named Evan Pritchard. He's a well-known figure in my area. He's a Micmac descendant. So when we talk about the Native American aspect of it, he's a perfect example. After him, we have Renee Fleury, who is my co-host, a pretty good friend of mine she's been getting into this for almost 20 years. She's been honing in on a few sites that she just attached herself to, and you would really like her because she is a druid, and among other things, so she's very spiritual when it comes down to like connecting with the earth and the chambers themselves in a whole. I'm a little bit of both, but
Right.
she really dives down that road. And so after her, there's a lady named Carol Haney. She's from Connecticut, and she's been getting into history in general, and she's a teacher for 40 plus years. Very knowledgeable. She went to school for archaeology. So on on another spectrum here, not everybody agrees on what these stone chambers are. A lot of people are still saying that they're root cellars. So I don't want to be mean, but I classify Carol in that context where she's kind of
Nuts
devil's
and bolts.
advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. She's agree to disagree, right? And I'm not going to say like we all get along because sometimes we don't, but it's okay. We make it
That's good
work.
that you have the both ends of the spectrum, and then one who's like they're
Yeah,
fairies, and the other one's like they're root sellers. Yeah.
right. And it's okay because everybody has something to bring to the table, and I really appreciate them because this is all voluntarily, led, and it is my first event, and they could have just said no to me, but so Carol will go, and then we have Glenn Kreisberg, who um is another predominant figure in my area. He runs overlookmountain.org over in Woodstock, and he used to write columns for Graham Hancock, so he knows Graham Hancock pretty well. And then after him, we have Jim Vieira, and so
Mm.
yeah, he's great too. So like I would connect Glenn and Jim around like the same bracket where they've been doing this for like 40 years, just about, and they're very knowledgeable, and I'm very lucky that they want to come and be a part of this, and share their knowledge with everyone. After him, we have a gentleman named Rock Costaldo, and so him and Renee, like it's like funny that I'm not trying to group people, but like him and Renee link up very well. He makes a lot of copper jewelry, copper trinkets, things like that. He works with crystals, so he goes to a site called Balanced Rock in North Salem,
Mm.
which is an amazing site, and I urge anybody to check it. It's right off the road. So the people that own that site don't mind if you park in their driveway. They're very sweet. Um, and it's a 60-ton glacial erratic on these quartz points. And uh, anybody can look it up online what it looks like. That's a really cool story. We can get into like in the 1980s, we had a lot of UFO sightings in our area in the Hudson Valley, and a lot of people blame this rock for that,
Oh,
that they
okay,
think
cool.
that they were attracted to some aspect of the
Is
rock.
this the rock that has like a honeycomb looking patterning on it?
No, I mean like it's I would say like geomorphic where like it looks like one thing on one side and then like every angle is like a little bit different, but on the front facing from when like the side that you would see when you're driving in, it looks like a lion.
And
So
it's
a lot
called
of it,
Balance Rock, right?
yeah, balanced rock, and it's in North Salem.
Oh, okay, cool. Because my friends live in Salem and Balanced
This is
Rock.
New York. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, they live in Boston. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, yeah, I'm getting pictures of the Balanced Rock in okay, in Salem, New York. Because
North Salem. Yep, North Salem.
okay, let's see. Oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. So it's definitely one of those what do
A
you
lot of people
call
call
it?
it a dolmen.
The dolmens, yeah.
Yeah, and so Ra and Renee had done like energetic, like Renee brings her singing bowls there and just tries to absorb the energy. You know, I'm not trying to speak for anybody, but I know them pretty well. And then Ra has brought a lot of his crystals there to energize his crystals and things like that, and just to like, you know, I've been there plenty of times, and it's just like one of those sites where the mainstream has chalked it up to just the Laurentide ice sheet dropping it off in that particular area. And then when you go there and you see that quartz, you know, in essence are not pointed like this in nature. So it
Yeah.
just has like that dolmen aspect of it. And it's just like in New York, you're like, why is this here? Right? You just question things. And then, but when you go there, the energy, it's like, it speaks for itself. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you
Hmm.
can judge it all you want with your eyes, but when you go there, you'll feel like this different vibe. You'll know that like there's some mystery to it, like because we don't know. There's an interpretive sign next to it. Like I said, basically just ad lib what it what they're calling it. It's just a glacial erratic that was
Well,
dropped
I
off.
find it weird that it's like if this were found in, South Korea or in Sochi, Russia, or in like somewhere in, France or England, we would just call it a dolmen. But if it's
Yeah,
found in New York, we are like, oh, we have to like logic it away. It's weird.
yeah. I hate to say that there's amnesia because I don't want to like take anything away from Graham Hancock, but he's spot on when we're talking about that. And I work so since I work in Athens as a historian, I got into this huge realization that the history that we're taught is not what is on record. And as of right now, my perspective of New York has absolutely changed within even the last 2 years.
Hmm.
And so when we talk about the glacials, you know, the Laurentide ice sheet, we're talking about a situation where the landscape was erased multiple times and dragged out of situ, and the context is missing. But every time, you know, humans are very opportunistic, so they rebuild, and the technology and the use for them were obviously very important. So when we see these stone chambers, this is why I won't let it go. Some people are like, why don't you just let it go? This is a closed case, and I just beg to differ. I feel like New York has so much to offer. I do a lot of cave explorings and I go into mines, and they're beautiful time capsules to kind of rewrite that story. Not rewrite, but add to it. You know, that essentially is what I'm doing. And so I don't want to take away from anybody's story. And a lot of my work has been to uh, make the environment safe, not safe, but there, since people were given a foundational belief of history. I'll just give a quick example. So there's a historian, and they tell the story that they see fit. A lot of it was biased. They just wanted to focus on the last 300 years,
Yeah.
and they erased the culture that was there thousands and thousands of years ago that are still living today. And what I'm trying to relate this with is the Mohegan tribe. For me in my area, it's very, very important for the community to understand that, you know, before they were removed in 1830, that the Dutch had a relationship and did cohabitate with Mohegans on the Mohegan lands, and that we can still do this. And it's only fair to help them come home so that people like me who are not full blood don't have to tell their story for them that they can willingly come back and feel comfortable and not have to be picketed and, burned at the stake
Right.
in a way. That's where a lot of my work is controversial, and I understand that, but I feel like there's such a higher purpose to it. So this is why I'm so happy to do what I'm doing. And again, with the stone chambers, we might be seeing a situation where there was a global civilization, and even if it had just a trading aspect to it, we're seeing that there's a inspiration of architecture throughout the world. And I know that you've seen them. Sardinia is a great example. Those are megalithic. These are like 100 times bigger than what we have here. But during my research, I realized really quickly that we see in New York that these are smaller structures, and then as we get to the coast, they get larger and larger. So then that's where my concept of like a breakaway civilization happened, where these might, and I'm not trying to say this one came first and the other one, came after, but we see that the structures here might be the first. And like I said, when we talk about the Laurentide ice sheet and the whole wiping away of the landscape, it is quite possible that, we had a civilization here. It wasn't a barren landscape. And
Yeah.
I do want to point out that I know people have this thing in their mind where they think that like the natives just were landlocked and they never left America or went anywhere, yet they were using these massive waterways, for traveling. And, because I heard, shout out to Tammy, she said that you do tours down south in Mexico
Yeah.
area. So I'm quite sure that they were taking routes, even down the Mississippi
Oh, I mean,
to,
in Chaco Canyon, they have shells and, silver like there were things that they had in their trading that they didn't have access to. Like we're nowhere near an ocean. So yeah, they were definitely trading.
yeah, I'm gonna go on record, and I'm slowly. I haven't been censored on legally yet, but just out of respect, I haven't told many people. I mean, I did mention in a few other interviews, but I did find an artifact last year in a chamber, and it's really important for people to understand because I've interviewed over 240 people in the last 5 years in that area in Putnam County, and I was able to so like minor segue, I interviewed this lady. There's a site in Groton, Connecticut, and it's called Gunjawamp. And I have pictures in my slide. There's a gentleman named Dr. Dodge who did this excavation. The tomb, they call it a tomb chamber, and they have a before and after. And the first picture is this massive granite door in front of this chamber. And then it says on the bottom in the footnotes, oh, later destroyed by vandals. But yeah, they were excavating. So I think part of it was like to disassociate from the fact that they ripped that door open to get inside. And there were plenty of witnesses, and I was able to interview a primary witness that was there. And she said that when they removed that door, they found a bronze pot with ashes. And
Massive
it
granite
went
door
through
in front of this.
university, and then it just disappeared. So
Wow. A
yeah,
brown
aside from
pot with ashes.
a bronze pot,
A bronze pot with ashes. Okay, yeah.
right?
Well,
So
it's like I can't tell you how many stories I've heard even from like I went to Canyon de Chelly and I had this woman who was a native Dene who was like, I don't know, in her late 70s. And she said when she was a little kid, the Smithsonian came in and took these two mummies that were covered in parrot feathers. She said they were wrapped in feather, like, like
they
multicolored
were
feather feathers.
elaborate with their. I can visualize in my mind's
Yeah.
eye.
And she
Probably
said
amazing.
like they came and they took them and there was never any like just bye and nowhere ever to be seen again kind of thing. So I mean I've heard this kind of thing so much. Like I grew up next to the Isleta Pueblo tribe in New Mexico. Like that's where I'm from. And
Okay.
yeah, we have tons of just stories of basically history being covered up. Like even there's a stone out here called the Los Lunas Decalage stone, which I've been to a
I've heard
bunch,
of
but I'm
it.
not supposed to because it's technically on the reservation, so you can't just like get access to it. But anyway, it's got this prototype language on it that like they claim is like no, it's probably done by cowboys in the 1800s, but I'm not so sure about that. And yeah, there's a lot going on. so you don't have to convince me that's like I'm 100% sure that we've had a global civilization that has been erased and why
Yeah,
the
I don't
motivate
think we're so much different than our past, really. We are a
no.
product of it, so
Yeah,
it's a little
exactly.
bit
I mean,
far-fetched.
and I had this thing. I went to India in May and I went to this
Oh,
coloss.
wait.
Yeah, it's rough. India's rough. I wouldn't exactly always recommend it
No,
to
I
everybody.
mean, yeah, on a surface level.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, like I went to this one cave called the Colossa Caves and or it's the Elora cave system, but they had
Yeah,
a
I love
ton
them.
ton of these peach holes everywhere, right? And I was showing a group of friends and they were like, "Well, Nikki, it's kind of like the 100th monkey. Like wouldn't they just people just, if like you teach a monkey how to wash an apple, then they'll learn how to wash an apple in other parts of the world." I'm like, I don't think people were like drilling hook holes into the beautiful architecture everywhere in the world just from like 100 monkey like consciousness effect. Like there was a technology or a reason or even if it was part of the destruction of these things, it was still some sort of systematic culture that was worldwide. And people are like, no, no, probably it's just not that. And it's just like the wheel was everybody invented the wheel at the same time. And I reject that in some kind of way. I
Yeah.
think that we really had some sort of cross-cultural communication before they're telling us we did.
Well,
Um,
telepathy is a big thing too, because when we talk about how you feel the vibe from somebody else, and you want to, a lot of people are like, no, I don't do that, I don't feel that, right? But then
yeah,
on a, when we talk about ancient civilizations before cell phones, it is quite possible that you were able to transmit that energy to someone else somehow, and whether they were beacons or whatever, stations for this, and chambers are, to me, at this point, biotechnologies. I was able to interview a Narragansett medicine man who unwillingly said what he said. Because I'll tell you the story with the King's Chamber later if you want. But
yeah.
because of
Or
that
tell it now. That's
story,
great. Let's hear
yeah.
it.
So I was on the hunt for the King's Chamber, which is the largest chamber in New York so far on record, and I was in the woods and I was just in the moment. So I kind of like the way that it's like an escarpment. So I was like up and I went down and around it. I didn't even see it because it just blended in with the landscape. And
Huh.
I wound up honing in on this well that just stuck out in the middle of the woods. There's absolutely no house, no business, nothing. It's just 800 feet elevation in the middle of the woods in Fwanstock, New York. And I was curious why this well would be there. And so I went up to it, and then something made me turn around. And when I turned around, it was awkward because I saw the chamber and it was a beautiful day out. It wasn't like overcast or anything. And I was instantly pulled to it. And so I started like running to it because I was excited, because anybody that does this research and they get this hook, they just want to see another one, then another one. It's
Yeah.
very addictive. So I was starting to run towards it, and right before, I would say the diameter for it was about 100 feet, which is quite large, and this dome came right over it, like this cloudy dome. And initially, I was like, what the hell is going on? But this happened so fast that I didn't really have time to process. And I was so intrigued by the chamber. I guess you could say like enchanted. And
Yeah.
I was in the moment, right? So I ran through this dome thing. And once I got in it, it was fine. Like everything just like went away. And that particular day, my hearing aid was not compatible with my phone anymore. So I've been deaf my whole life, and so my phone went from 86% to 4, and I knew subconsciously that that was like something big happened. But I was so intrigued about getting into this chamber, and since I only had 4% on my phone, I wanted to get a nice survey and get a good video and just get in and get out basically, and then come back
Right.
another day and do like a more in-depth survey. So I did that, and I go home, and my knee was bothering me that day too, and I was listening to my husband and my kids talking, and I just like looked at them. I'm like, oh, I can really hear you guys like way better than I usually do. And then at that time, I wasn't really. processing what was going on with my body, and my knee wasn't bothering me, and it was like burning. So it was like, like that nagging, like arthritic, like I'm getting older. So it's like that pain was there, and then now it's not. So I always like jokingly, but in all seriousness, I would say that the chamber scanned me inadvertently without me knowing and knew what my issues were and gave me this healing gift. And
Nice. And
yeah,
are
I
you
haven't
still hearing
yeah,
better?
I haven't used my hearing aid since, and this was like 3 years ago. So I don't
Wow.
know scientifically how I would be able to explain that to somebody. I have gone back and had, you know, a lot of experiences with this chamber, and I would like to say that I have a favorite chamber, but for some reason this chamber kind of like it's always like in the back of my head where it's like, no, I'm first, like I'm the favorite,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want it to be that way, right? And it's funny because my friend Renee, who's like a druid and really into this stuff, she's like, yeah, that chamber, there's something to do with your past life, and this chamber and you are connected and things like that. And you know, I I like to make sense of things, and it's nice to hear stuff like that because it is comforting, when
Yeah.
you want to, find an otherworldly meaning for things. And so one night I had this dream about this woman that was underneath the chamber, and it was a little scary to me because she looked like a mummy, and she was just pacing back and forth, and all she kept saying was, help me, help me, help me. And then I had this I had bought an endoscopic survey like machine a while ago. It's like 16 feet, and I just didn't know what I was going to use it for. And I started dabbling into like getting into the walls and seeing what was in the walls and things like that. And I I'm very I respect NAGPRA 100%. So I don't move anything. I don't I report everything through the site that they have called Chris, and I do work with tribal historic preservations officers closely. So if I do find anything or see anything in my notes that really is a red flag and jumps out to me, I present that to them first before I go to the state. And in that order though. And I do want these sites to be protected, which is why I'm doing this conference, mostly to give them a safe platform so that people can understand what we're looking at. Because I've done two DOEs in the last year, and only tribal council has responded to me, which is indicating to me, I found out later through USET papers that, legal papers, that 36 CFR is a big deal. These are ancient ceremonial stone landscapes, which are CSLs. And whether or not they get on a podium and say that to everybody, we have to understand that this is a culture that has almost been erased. A lot of them have. And so that they are very careful about what they say out loud to other people, because looting is a big deal, and people only want to see smoke and mirrors and what kind of a dollar can they make out of this. And that's not what I'm doing. That's not why I'm here. And I've had plenty of people that wanted to do a documentary and make $1 million somehow off of this, and that's not the route I want to go. And that's why education is like first and foremost, and that's why this conference is free, because I believe in free education. And I want people to become protectors and not collectors. I really want them to get out of that mind frame that, this is our history. At the end of the day, we're
Yeah.
the stewards of this land now, and it's our responsibility to do this. But this chamber, I had a dream about it, and that night, and then I went the next morning and I did a survey, and I found this artifact. And every single professional that I've ever spoken to has said that it's something, but they don't know what it is. And that's so frustrating because I've tried my best to correlate this to another like ancient, I'm
Is
considering it
it
to be
stone
metal.
or?
It's metal. It looks like a bell. I can show you off camera. So maybe you can get your perspective on it. I don't want to, like I said, I want to tell the story because this is why I'm doing what I'm doing for people to understand there's a palimpsest and adaptive reuse, because humans are, like we said, like they're very opportunistic. If a huge building is there, they're going to use it. These are not just root cellars or wine cellars for Prohibition era or munitions bunkers. I went to Jefferson Hall Special Archives. I got access at the beginning of the year to do some investigative work because I had a lead that there was a chamber underneath Eisenhower Hall. And that's a whole other rabbit hole. I found so much more about West Point that I I was not expecting, and that's usually the case when you investigate. Is you have a question and then you wind up with like 10 more
And
that
yeah.
you just like yeah you have to like put those aside, and then when the time comes, you go back, right?
Yeah, and
But
I heard you talking with on the Dave show about your time at the West Point and how they were pretty much unhelpful and called you weird
yeah,
and yeah.
that's fine. You know, like they
Yeah.
don't have to. And I was, like I said, I was very candid about why I was there, what I was doing. I had to literally for 8 months interject the question of the chambers and the blueprints for them because I wasn't finding blueprints in the archives. And I've been in archives, I know how to look for this stuff. And I was honestly looking to, that wasn't like the end all be all if I did find one, but it would have made sense to like find out what the proper building material was for them initially and who built them and things like that. That would have answered those questions, but we don't see that. It's a complete void in the record. So I found out, like I said, I found out more.
So how do you account for like I assume like I've seen some of the pictures of these stone chambers, but some of them are like megalithic in terms of some of the stones are pretty big to be moving like why
Four
by
tons for I
yeah.
mean, for lintel stone, you can say like the roof slab because that's what it is, because some of them they're 13, 14 plus. And then I would associate those particular buildings. They're all different. They're almost like fingerprints. Same
Right.
kind of concept, but different touch. And so when we're seeing above, we're seeing below. And then Jim, he's done plenty of investigative work with his brother. And it's so weird because I knew Jim and I grew up watching him. I'm 40. So I was a familiar, but I didn't associate his work with what I'm doing now up until this conference. And then I
Right.
realized that, like he did say that there was levels to them and that, I saw what I saw. I could genuinely say that there is a cavity. I obviously want to be careful about what I say because I don't want that to trigger people to go in into this frenzy where they want to just go and dig and do. First of all, good luck moving them. So I'm
Right.
not really worried, like that's why I'm okay with saying, aside from tribal council probably coming at me and I might lose rights to other, work that I've been doing with them, but like I said, if we don't start talking about this, then it is going to be pushed under the rug like everything else, and we won't understand our history. And it is important to me. It is important.
I agree. And I mean, I went to American Stonehenge and I mean, when I first got there, it wasn't impressive until you saw like the major part of it where it's like, and I'm going like, oh, whoa, it's so manipulated stone and I mean, it's undeniable that like they built some like huge chambers and somebody built it and some of the slabs are using are it's not just cavemen, guys. It's not just like hunter gatherer doing I mean, it's advanced technology.
Right. And I'm not doubting that humans didn't build this or
Yeah,
that one culture was smarter than the other, right? When we're talking about demeanoring people, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make it cohesive where we can definitively say like yeah, these people built this is how they did it, whether they used megafauna or not. Because
yeah,
that's a reality that we're looking at. We use elephants today for even logging and stuff like that. So a lot of my research kind of went down that rabbit hole where we're like, okay, well, the megafauna
maybe that
were here.
yeah, that's true.
That's a possibility.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, okay, in the US, and you have so many mounds. Like I've been to
Yep.
Cahokia and I've been to a bunch of these mounds, and they systematically destroyed over 1 million mounds looking for things and artifacts that we have no idea where they are or what they are.
Right.
Um, what like why? I mean, okay, so this is a woo story. This is my woo story.
Sure.
Okay, so 2 years ago, almost to the day, like a lot, like 2 summers ago, I had moved to Arkansas, and I was by Hot Springs, and I don't live there anymore now. I'm back in New Mexico, but I lived there for a year, and I was gonna dig crystals every day. I didn't do that, but that's what my plan was. Anyway, so I had only been there like maybe 6 weeks to 2 months, and I was asleep in the middle of the night, and we lived right next to this like creek and or crick. I don't know how you guys got, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Great.
like watching, yeah. Anyway, and it was bought right by the Ouachita Lake, which is like a dammed lake, but it's a huge lake in Arkansas. Anyway, I think it might be the biggest lake in Arkansas. They this dude, like this Native American dude with like, just one long ponytail that went down below his butt, and he was just wearing like, almost like leather skin pants and no shirt. He like in the middle of the night was like peeking over my bed and just staring at me. And I woke up and I saw him and I screamed and I was like, "Oh my God." Like, and I got scared, and then he just vanished. And I was having a hard time delineating whether that was real, that really happened, or if that was a dream time thing. And I thought like, okay, well maybe I just saw like a weird like Native American ghost. I don't really know. But that was his introduction to me. And then it proceeded for the next like 4 or 5 nights that week. He came in and gave me lessons in my dreams. And what happened was, like, I got to see through his eyes, and he was explaining what they were. And like from this, and so, okay, this is like a psychic thing or like a dream time thing, so take it for what it's worth. But he told me that the Native Americans that we think of in our textbooks are not anything like what they really were. And so he showed me their way of living and their lifestyle and all that stuff. And what it was is like, um they were able to bilocate. They were able to talk telepathically to each other. They didn't need big structures or big homes so much because they could just like their temperature was regulated. Their entire aura, their body was always like 72 no matter what. So they could walk in 115 degrees and it would still feel like 70, or they could be below zero and still feel like 70 to them. Like they had a regulated auric field. And so they when they wanted to go to sleep, they would just build a moss bed and go to sleep anywhere. And then they could like put this shield around their entire encampment to where no animals or predators would come in. So like they were always on the move, and it wasn't just because they were like, I don't know, like I mean it was because they didn't have to be the structures that we live in. Like they didn't need this. That was like kind of like they were more advanced than what we are now. And they lived to be about 1,000 years old. I mean, this is crazy, but I'm just telling you how it is.
No, I'll
And
say when you're done, I'll tell you a story about what the Narragansett man said.
so he was explaining to me, so he told me how they work, and they lived underground, and a lot of there's cave systems and things going on and stuff too. So what happened is like you don't get these powers until you're about 100 years old, or I think maybe it was like 60 to 100 years old. But once they got to a certain age, they just kind of stayed like around the age of 30 for like, I don't know, like 900 years or something. But anyway, they had to learn how to activate this within their bodies, right? And so he was showing me this whole thing. So if you were under 60, they called you a baby. Like you were like,
Okay.
you were babies sort of thing. So one day I was by the creek in his eyes, and his family was just kind of like they were washing stuff like right where I lived. And this guy like pops out of nowhere, and he like opens his mouth, and like I don't know, it's almost like a yawn, but he sent like a block of information real quick to my guy, and my guy was able to like see the entire story of like what he was talking about. And he showed these, I don't know what they called them, but they looked like red squids in the sky everywhere. And he was showing them like this guy was living more like in New York or something, and this guy was in Arkansas where I was at. And this guy was showing him like that they're just destroying everything. They're killing us and destroying everything, and it was happening like instantaneous. And he was kind of like saying, "Go, run, hide. You have to leave the babies." And then so my guy was in his like he was like in like 300, 400 years old or something, but he still had family and all that. And so like he literally was like instantaneously like told everybody that could understand at the creek, because like not everybody, the younger ones didn't have the powers to know yet. So like they were trying to explain to him like we have to go, we have to get underground, we have to like like our time on the surface is gone. We have to go underground now. And they ended up having almost like sacrificial people who decided to stay with the people who were 60 and under because they weren't able to go where they had to go. And they basically understood and knew that there was this virus that was spreading across the hot, but it wasn't a virus. It was like an intentional reset by like almost like programmers or something, and they literally melted everything. And then he was showing me that there were these pyramids inside of these crystal pyramids that were inside of Lake Ouachita. And then when I got up, I woke up, there's all these weird little islands and stuff. I looked and there were actually two archaeological sites that they were excavating when they decided to build the dam that were never completed. Um, so and I didn't know about that before, just the dream like showed me. So I started like researching like some of the like Native Mountains and stuff like that. Now, so take it for what it's worth. That was just like a dream time thing, but like I definitely had this guy come to me. But it has given me a little bit of a different perspective on what we're dealing with here in the United States because like I feel like you don't just leave this pristine land like, oh, 1492, we just go it like this thing we we were the Mecca at some point and we got destroyed, I believe. And I can see it in the
multiple times.
Southwest.
Yeah.
There's so much, I don't know if it was like a nuclear weapon. I don't know what there is, but there's so much like melted rock everywhere. And there's so much stuff that was like intentionally erased. So that's where my I'm standing currently. So like I also look at the nuts and bolts, but I can't ignore that there is a woo spiritual element to all of this stuff that we have to start acknowledging or we're not going to get anywhere.
The Cherokee, their beginning story is a site. Well, they named it pretty much after the mound that they came out of, and it's called Nimawase and or Nikawase, and it is very interesting because even with Squire and Davis, whether they were trying to make a dollar off of what they were doing, but they were literally cross-sectioning these mounds, and a lot of them looked like chambers on the inside and had burials, and so multiple times there was documentation that these were giants. And when we talk about like the red-haired people, and I do right now, I'm doing phylogenetics where I'm tracking haplogroup X from the Near East over here because we see it come into North America about 15,000, 20,000 years ago and mix with Ojibwe specifically. And Ojibwe used to be in New York. And the issue with that is that when the X came here, there was a ghost DNA that was already, like, there were already people here. So when you're talking about these other people, it's quite possible that they might have somehow been able to mate with them and create this haplogroup X2A. And then from there, there's like all this umbrella underneath it. And
Mm.
so when I I was investigating and pretty much reaching out to anybody in tribal council that would listen to me and give me any information, so very close to them, like I said, so it's like hard to like pull it out. I've heard stories of like the little people building them, and then we can tie that into Ireland and Scotland with ferries, because ferry houses are very similar to the mounds that we have here, and we see roads intentionally built around our structures here, and then basically the same thing over in Ireland. And so when I told the Narragansett medicine man, by the way, I have to like give you the backstory to this. I work overnights, and I found this number to tribal council to speak to somebody else. And I was just going to call the office number and just leave a message because I'm busy. And I thought they'll just get back to me tomorrow or whatever the next day. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and the guy picked up the phone, and I was expecting a woman. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought I had the wrong number." And he was like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Well, I told him my whole bit because it's a long story. Like I told Dave, like I can't just say this in like 5 minutes what I'm doing." And so what happened was he just basically very bluntly said, "Well, you knew I was going to pick up. You knew I was we were going to have this conversation, and I didn't know, right?" And but it was nice that he was willing to have that conversation. So I did call him back the next day, and we had a 2-hour conversation about my experiences, what happened with the King's Chamber. And he was funny because he was like, "Well, if you called me 20 years ago, I probably would have just hung up the phone on you because you're an American." And I'm trying to explain to him that I have a little bit of Native American in me. And he's like, "I don't," it's like he didn't want to hear it. Like I wasn't good enough. Right. And the
Right.
experiences that I had, he couldn't understand why me, why I saw that, why did this happen. And like I said to Dave, like the jig is up. He can't take that experience away from me. I knew what happened. I know what I saw, and I know that these are much, much more than what we just see them as root cellars. So that's when that veil kind of came undone with him, and he said, these are from these are this is almost like end quote, these are biotechnologies and these are from a world that we quite don't understand yet, like a whole other world. And it really it still gives me chills because, well, we all like investigate because we're interested, right? And part of it is because we don't know. And it just highlighted why I am doing this and why it is so important for the world to understand that, I know that we're never probably going to get to be able to have world peace, but it'd be nice if we could try to have at least tolerance. My sister's in the military, and I have military in my background with my family in general, and I've seen war and what it does to everyone, and obviously politics. I don't want to go down. I'm not political at all.
Me either.
Yeah, I just want to be a human. I just want my kids. I've 3 kids, and I just want them to have a beautiful world to live in along with everyone else. And so that's why these
Yeah,
stories
and
are
I
so important.
I feel like something happened and I want to know what happened. And so also
Yeah,
you can't, I mean, I don't know what the quote is, something about how like you can't, I mean, to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from kind of thing.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jacqueline says that from Universe Unveiled. She says that a lot, and it's true. For a lot for the people that do care, I guess, because we know all too well that there are people that don't give a shit about what's going
No.
on and could care less in general. So
I
that's
mean,
okay. They're allowed.
but it's like I also am I'm a rock person, like a huge rock person, and I go all over the world to different places like just it's an addiction, I
Yeah,
guess. I don't know. But I can hear rocks and I can hear megaliths and stuff, and they make a different noise than other rocks.
yeah,
And I think that there's living stone. So like some of them are still activated and some are not. And like if there's lichen growing on it, it's a living stone. It still usually makes a noise. It's still usually alive in some form or whatever. That's what I have found. Um and I don't know what that means to be a living stone except for like what I said. I'm like it's literally pulsating some sort of little energy off of it.
yeah. Well, the Native Americans believe in Manitou, and Manitou is, the creator, and that's the stone. The stone is the energy, and this is why these stone chambers are so fascinating to me because the granite has a piezoelectric effect.
Yeah.
We also have that. So when we go inside of these chambers, they're almost like amplifications because your energy really has nowhere else to go because it's connecting with this other energy, and then it's whatever. When we talk about the Akashic records, um, if you want to go down this road, we always heard of like a library of sorts, or like that iCloud, where it's like holding all this knowledge, and people all over the world that they have their own world, right? So these worlds get entangled into one somehow, and
Yeah.
the experiences, you would feel like it was such a waste of time if they weren't like remembered in some form or another. So when you imprint your energy in the ether, I believe that it goes to these stones, and some of them are able to absorb more than others. So the stone chambers, what has happened, it seems to be even cosmic energy. There's been imprints and lessons in the stone that you are able to literally, you don't, and this is why people, I feel so sad for them. They want it to be harder than what it is. They just don't want to accept that they walked into a building and that it was an automatic download. It's just because we can't interpret it properly right now because we don't know the language. It doesn't mean that we can't eventually. And so this is the situation we have with the stone chambers, is that the granite is holding this data, this knowledge, and when you go inside of it, you get an upgrade. And you can't help but wonder that if it was for maturation, because when we talk about Sardinia, they use them specifically for inoculation rights for young boys for maturation. So when they went into these stone chambers, they had a series of like steps they had to take. They had to go without food and water and light, so we're talking about a complete, sensory deprivation. That puts you in a different, psychosis, per se. And it's very interesting to see that, how important even heart and brain coherence is. I found a chamber at Gunjiwamp that has granite and bluestone. Both had affected
Oh,
your body
interesting.
in different ways. So I'm very open to seeing, because there's not just one reason for something. I think that these were multifunctional buildings. I also think that they were very transformative in ways where, like, you could just walk into it and it knew, like I told you, my experience with the King's Chamber. I didn't even need to say anything, just happened. And I was thankfully able to understand it later. Not that day, but still, it was a little slow in catching up to what happened, but at least it happened. And I really wish that for a lot of other people, because they might have a different perspective on life if they did that.
And I think it's interesting that, the King's Chamber, it's funny because the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid is even granite. Like there's so like
Yeah,
granite is really interesting because yeah, it does have the piezoelectric effect of like the compressed crystal within it. It'll have some form of quartz or something in it, which so I do think it could be a technology in and of itself. I always talk about how if you look at granite in general, it is a cookie dough of different, like feldspar and
right.
tourmaline and quartz or whatever it is. And it's not like there's just one giant chunk here and this, that. It's all like kind of evenly distributed, almost like a mix that's solidified. So I always sometimes wonder if granite in and of itself, even if it's in a mountain or whatever, is some sort of ancient technology, like the way in which it
Yeah,
was, because it doesn't even make sense that it would be like magma that like because it would have different cooling rates that would have to form those things. But I digress back to the fact that, like so you healed in that chamber, but I've heard some people, I actually have had two separate people tell me on this show that they were spontaneously healed in the Bosnia pyramids, or that big Bosnia pyramid. So like
I
I've
I'm
had
with this
people.
guy 100%. I From day one I knew, and I feel sorry that, because there are debunkers that are
Mhm.
naysayers and they don't want to
Yeah,
hear it. That's fine, but he was on to he's on to something, clearly. There's rumors of, even, I'm happy you brought that up, because in my research I realized that um there was somewhere, I can't, don't quote me, but at some point in time, the Egyptians came to my area, or our area here, and they went to the Appalachian Mountains, and the sachems brought them into these caves in the Appalachian Mountains, and the telluric energy that they felt from these caves were such an inspiration to them. So when they went back to Egypt, that's what started this whole pyramid craze that they had, where they wanted to started
interesting. Yeah.
to tap into the telluric energy, and kind of like, it's almost when you have like a little lightning bug and you want to have it in that, the jar, it's like you want to keep it forever, like that, that energy. It's almost, I would like to say, it is an amplification. It has to be, because we see it and we feel it all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
And but humans like to keep stuff in a box. So I think that's what we're seeing in this architecture. Another interesting thing I would like to point out before my mind goes off to the left field, in some of these chambers, we have these, I call them false doors. Um, when you're looking at it from outside to the right hand side to the bottom, it's like it's almost like a mini lintel stone
Hmm.
area, and then this plug, this granite plug inside of
Yeah.
it. Some of them are really long. They go like 3 feet long. And so I started realizing I'm a big, fan of Egypt. And when we talk about false doors, and where they are in particular in a structure, the right hand side was coming up a lot. And when we correlate this with um, burials, this might be a case where we're seeing the soul being revived once the sunlight hits this portal every morning. And it's almost the same concept in Egypt, where, the rays will bring, the soul, the food, and bring it back to life again. So it's still a mystery, like I said, but we're getting there, and I feel that a lot of other people are opening up to this concept of them being more than just a root cellar.
Yeah, the phantom door thing is so, I mean, I think, When a lot of the stone chamber pictures I've seen, they do remind me of Malta. Like there's a bunch
Yeah.
of yeah, there's a big Malta look, but I mean even Peru has a lot of those false door
Yep.
things that are that are just in the
Mexico has these stone chambers, and they're. I have a neighbor who's from Mexico, and while I was investigating, I would ask anybody on the street, "Hey, have you seen this?" It's like almost like a missing person. It's like, "Have you seen this before? Like, do you know what the
right.
structure is?" Not give them like the location or any other backstory to it, just the picture. And a lot of people would be like, "No, I don't know, I don't care," and then, but some people I would like get a hit, and they would be like, "Yeah, I've seen that in my hometown," or I knew about this, and then they give me their story, and then I put that together in my database, right? But my neighbor next door is from Mexico, and he said that we have these down in my hometown, and but ours are a little bit different. He was kind of bragging about it because he said ours are like 2 stories high, like there's 2 levels, like literally like 2 levels to them. And I said, "Oh my God, that's fascinating." And I started going down that rabbit hole. And we see chinking here in ours, and there was this material called Algonquin cement that is very ancient that was used, and that is not really mainstream. So whether they were using that and then red ochre, because we have red ochre as well, we
Right.
don't see that anymore. Because I really truly feel like the ones that we're seeing are already looted and
Oh yeah.
surface looted. Where they did take them apart inside out, maybe deface them per se, where people couldn't see the context of the red ochre and the beautiful paintings that they probably put in there. But in Mexico, we see that they're so colorful and that they pop. Like they're completely different. And even if we didn't, like that's fine. That's the spice of life. That's just what was the culture down in Mexico, what they were doing. How they perceived what they were using their chambers for. Like I said to Dave, it's we have a house here, and then I know it sounds like basic, but it's like, and then they have a house over there, and then it's like, why is it so hard for people to understand that these stone chambers are pretty much the same thing, when we're talking about a
Yeah.
global, interaction and inspiration of architecture.
I mean, I do think it's really weird to start thinking about how erased America or United States in particular is. Like it's not as erased in
They had
Mexico.
to. They had to do it this way because everybody wants to leave a legacy. And they had to do it this way. I think most of this is because they were disassociating with the trauma that they did. And it was not a pretty situation. And I think that's why a lot of the times people don't like white people because they seem to just forget about what happened 100, 200 years ago, even, right? And this wasn't, as a historian, I think like a million years ago is so long ago. And sometimes that's where
Yeah.
I get a hard time wrapping. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that's like yesterday to me. And it is crazy that we've developed from that time till this time so much. And a lot of it, like I said, disassociating and covering up. We literally see when another culture was colonized, how they left the other. It's funny when they talk about, oh, they were a nobody, and it's like, why are you assimilating them? Then why are you absorbing their culture
Yeah,
if it didn't
exactly.
bring you anything to the table for you, right? And then all of a sudden they're a legend and they're a myth, and then we're actively seeing that with Native Americans, and we did for like a little bit get on the bandwagon because Hollywood didn't help, and it glorified that aspect for people. And like I said, when a storyline for especially like a historian for a particular town, because your towns matter, this is where it starts in the home, then it goes into your community, and then that's the narrative, and it's always going to stay. So when I first became a historian, I had a lot of people tell me that's not the history I grew up knowing. That's not, you're going way too far back in time for us. We
Right.
can't do like, and that's fine, right? But that's not true. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can, and I want to give the other people who do care the right history because they deserve it, and the children that are not born yet, they deserve it, and so on, right? So they don't have to live in the shadows, and they don't have to do so. Like it's nice to learn for yourself, right? I'm not a person that likes to hand out, but I understand that there's a lot of people that do. A lot of people like to be told what to do, so that's fine. However,
Yeah.
least give them the opportunity. These people before me, they didn't care, and they would even dumb down the situations. I've had colleagues tell me, well, they can't go that far back. 300 years is where you're capping because you
Right.
decided that they can't go back. That's your fault. Like to me, that's your fault for not being able to, that's a you thing, that you can't teach them to go back and bring it back to life for them. That's not what I'm going to be doing. And it's been quite of a fight for me. It's worth it. I've gotten farther than they thought I was. I'm not going to stop. Even if they didn't want to appoint me anymore, I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing. I don't need a title. I'm self-taught anyways. That's why they don't like
Yeah,
me.
I
Another
like
reason
that.
why I'm not allowed to be a part of the crowd in their group in their party. But it's okay, and once you learn something, you can't unlearn that sometimes, and
No.
it's only you go further, you just go from there.
And it is, and for me, it's like the omission of evidence that you find or comment, even if you just take
Yeah,
like the hallmarks and the commonality, the omission of like what seeing any of this as legitimate, like so, worthy of study, is just mind-boggling to me. You
right.
know,
Again, their fault. That's a them problem because
that is a
it
them
is
problem.
about um that's not what they're into. Um,
No, and I mean, I think
that's
it's like as I've grown up, I've kind of realized like, okay, well, I mean, I guess we rely on our school systems to teach us history, but I mean, that's like
But
you
it's
can't.
scary because it is somebody's preference and their bias at the end of the
Yep,
day.
that's what that
There's
is.
really it's really difficult for people to just like put politics aside because a lot of it too, I can see why somebody would peddle a narrative for so long because they didn't want their peers or they didn't want the community to shun them because they were to go outside the box and say the truth or, be that guy, right? I have nothing to lose. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
I
love
got
that. And I'm
lucky.
so happy that you are doing that.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Okay, so like I mean, like let's see. I think we've been going for over an hour, and since it's like I want to like those who just are here or coming back into this, we want to go back into Sarah's offering a free um conference this coming Saturday, like on the
Yeah.
8th. And you guys definitely if you're anywhere near like anywhere near the New York area, it's give us a little bit more information about it, Sarah, so that people can kind of
So
maybe.
it's in Putnam County in Carmel at the Veterans Memorial Park. It'll be at the Upper Park, and it's 201 Gipsey Trail, Carmel, New York, and it's free. You can start pulling in and parking and getting comfortable. It's a public park, so I really urge people to like bring their lunch, lots of water or fluids. It's a no drug environment, so no drinking, no smoking or anything like that. It's kid friendly. I have an area for the little guys. We'll do our presentations in the barn, but it is just like a big hangout, like a meet of the minds for not even like-minded people, like we were saying before. Like there's other people that are probably there to come specifically try to debunk me or just to do whatever, right? Just to be a part of the conversation. I welcome everybody. I want people to really enjoy it. I want them to have a nice day. Hopefully it might rain, but that's okay. We have pavilions, so it's good.
And
Rain or
then there
shine.
will be a way to watch it online if you can't make it, right?
We're gonna be doing like bits and pieces of live. I have a gentleman that's going to set up and record the speakers, and then what we'll do is we'll make a movie or something out of that from the New York, from the Institute for Natural Philosophy. They wanted to help me create a movie out of it, make it look professional. So that'll be available later at some point too. But yeah, there'll be bits and pieces of live going on.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I want to dig into this like in a presentation format sometime, like
Yeah,
way more formal where I have like a full video instead of like a live, but I just wanted to get this live stream out because I really wanted people
appreciate
because
it.
it takes me a long time to like put an edit together just because I got other stuff going on in life or whatever, so it's just like I'm always like I record something and then like a month later it comes out, but I was like, nope, she needs to get this out now. So
Appreciate
let's
it.
let's get this out now. But then I do want to circle back and have you do a thorough presentation on all the stone
Yeah, I'll
chambers for
send you
everybody.
the PDF formats or however you want it, and then it'll probably be easier for you to pull it up on your end. But yeah, I'm more than welcome. I'm more than happy to come back. I really do appreciate you for doing this for
Okay,
me.
yeah, great. Because like I mean, I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing it. I want you to keep doing it because I think it's I also think this is very important. I'm trying, I mean, I'm an independent researcher, I would say myself, but like I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of, I mean, I am like in the process of writing a book. If I'll ever finish it, I don't know. But I
You will.
definitely think people like us need to continue exploring the, because like what we're being told is not the full story. It's just not.
Yeah, I
There's
agree.
way more to what's going on here than what we've been told. It really is. And for me, I think that's damn important.
Yeah, and there's enough for everybody. That's why I was telling the girls and even Dave, like people get a little like weird about it. They're like, "Well, what if you figure it out? What are we gonna do now?" It's like pick the next like I know you maybe wanted to be the guy that did that one, right? Or did
Right.
whatever, but it's like there's so many more whys. Pick one. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
never ending.
And I mean like you said, it's like I mean there probably are stone chambers in the Northeast that have not been uncovered yet.
Oh, most definitely. Like I can tell you, and I know I'm getting guff for it, but I don't care. In Putnam County alone, on record, there's 200. I would go as far as saying that there's 600. And when we talk about development in general, this is the issue that we have because people are literally, I've spoken to many contractors, they get paid to level these out. But it's weird because you can see the humanity in them. And it is illegal, by the way, to do that. They're not allowed to, but it's just because nobody's there enforcing it, then they
Right.
just don't know. And then, like I said, the educational aspect, nobody knows. And like you can get away with saying, I don't know all day long. That's not
Yep.
where I'm at right now. This is why my friend and I are helping to amend this law 157-1. Only in the town of Putnam, they've done this, re-amended it, and will be enforcing it. The goal is to be federal at the end of the day. And I have a good feeling that we will make strides in the next 2 years to make that happen. But people don't want to do this. They don't want to level them out. They don't want to destroy this because I'm almost like, I don't really need to explain myself with you, but it's almost like the chamber's like, don't hurt me. Like, don't do this. Like, you don't have to do
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and like not to like we always as humans want to like put, like it's like a building, we have to make it human, right? But it is true. The energy is there. And I've seen the guy, and these are brute guys, and that probably will never cry, right, on screen or whatever, but they don't want to do it. And I've seen it, the twinkle in their eye where they know that there's something else going on here. But I would go on record saying that there's 600 in Putnam County alone. And that's
Wow.
not even on the northeast side. Like we're talking thousands, just like Sardinia, a very small island. We have 6 to 7 thousand still standing today. There's something going on here. So I'm more than happy to come back and talk to you in detail and show you my slides and stuff.
Yeah, great. Like, yeah, let's please do. Let's try to get something on the calendar after this because I think
Awesome.
it's you know, it's it's very, very important. Very much so. So anyway, yes, you guys go check out Sarah and you can find her at her Facebook page
Yep.
and anywhere else. Is there any kind of website or any link or just the
Nope, just Facebook right now.
or
That's all I'm
Googling through
doing. Yeah, I'm
Eventbrite?
starting to do a YouTube. I have it up. It's Unique Explorer. But I only have a few videos on there, but most of my documentation, like my videos and things like that, are quickly uploaded to my Facebook because it's an easier platform for me to use. And
Okay.
you can still find me under my name. It'll be Sarah Brailey and then Unique Explorers right after it.
Love it. Okay, great.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we
Thanks
really
for
will
having
do
me.
this